Hi, welcome to the Not Your Average Life Coach podcast. My name is Kay Wilson and I'm a self-empowerment coach and intuitive energy healer. And I am obsessed with helping you step into the most powerful version of yourself. If you are ready to overcome your self-doubt, transform your relationship with love, money, and self-worth, and start creating the future you that you have always dreamed of becoming, you're in the right place. My desire with this podcast is to help you transform the relationship you have with yourself by sharing with you tools and perspectives that will help you actualize the life you have dreamed of creating. Treat this podcast as your own personal treasure trove of rich ideas, practices, and teachings that will transform your day-to-day experience. Hello, it's so lovely to see you all here. I am actually recording this as a video for the first time. So this is a slightly new experience for me. I actually did do it, thinking about it now, when I interviewed the Barefoot Dutchman, but I have not done it on my own, and here I am. So, and this is actually all part of the topic that I want to talk to you today about, which is showing up with integrity. Not that you need to do things face to face in order to do that, but I wanted to express my situation so that we have complete transparency for those who are just listening on the podcast channel. If you want to watch me, you can just go to my website, www.kwilson.love, and click on podcast, and then you'll be able to access the YouTube video. You can search for Kay Wilson on YouTube, but there's another lady there who has had a very different journey to mine, and she's not me. So it can be a little confusing. So I'm going to keep looking down as well because I have my notes. And that's me being as transparent as I need to right now. So integrity, showing up with integrity. Why do I want to talk about integrity all of a sudden? Because as I've mentioned in the last couple of podcasts, we as a collective are moving into a really different energy. And the bizarre experiences we've been having on a global level, on a personal level, have all been the warm-up, if you like, to this transition. And you may have been experiencing great personal shifts, purging, if you like, of old ideas and old beliefs, which are preparing you to move into an energy which requires you to be actually much more honest and authentic about who you are. Because there won't be the space for behavior that is not aligned with the heart. You can attempt to be and do any of those things, but you won't be received well or held well by that energy. So this transition we're going through, and the reason why it's been so uncomfortable since particularly 2020, it's because we've been going through this sort of filtering system, which has been helping each of us on an individual level clear out these old paradigms, these old beliefs, these limiting beliefs in many ways, and helping us get to newer beliefs and ideas about who we are, and most importantly, about the people that we want to become. So showing up with integrity, today I want to explore some steps that you can take personally to help yourself on that journey. Now, since 2020, the impact that COVID had on us as a collective was really interesting, because all of a sudden the larger institutional structures were faced with a situation that they had never seen before. And it was something that they, in the moment, were trying to figure out how to deal with. And as individuals, we quickly recognized, I think it'd be fair to say, that no one really knew what the right approach was. And then everybody was scrabbling to figure out what the best thing was to do. And in that process, I found it really interesting to observe that each of us was thrust into this no man's land of opinions and beliefs and fed lots of different perspectives. And it actually boiled down to us as individuals choosing what it was that we wanted to line up with. though there were lots of mandates and lots of expectations placed on us by various different institutions, personal connections, family members, lots of different people and bodies in our life had different perspectives and opinions about what the right thing to do was. And what that resulted in was us as individuals having to really tune into ourselves and listen to what felt right for us. And that was really the first big shakeup, if you like, that created that opportunity for us to start listening to our own perspective, our own beliefs. And when we are stepping into that authentic space, which we're going to be doing more and more and more, because authenticity is going to become the most valuable asset any of us can have. In fact, each of us as individuals will become so attuned to authentic behavior that when people around us show up outside of their authenticity, we will be able to tell very easily. And that's going to become increasingly apparent over the next few years. So what I want to do with this episode is kind of give you the opportunity to explore what your authenticity is and how you can take steps to really get clear on your own inner voice and your own opinions. And that's actually the first thing I recommend doing, is really checking in with yourself on what your next move might be in all situations. And if that feels like something that is challenging for you right now, recognizing that it's simply an area that you can start to explore and develop for yourself. We're not looking for things to ridicule or criticize in your present identity or experience. What we're looking for are opportunities for expansion. That's essentially what this overall experience is all about. For every single one of us, don't think I'm exempt in any way. I'm also in this journey with you, and everyone on the planet is. There is no person that doesn't have room for growth. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. Okay. So the first step to connection with your authenticity is really checking in with yourself and discovering what your authentic self looks like. Now, you've heard me say this a billion times if you've listened to my other podcasts or you watch me on Instagram, because I harp on about it all the time. But the way that you feel is the very thing that is indicating to you what your authentic self feels about a situation. And the reason I point it out so much is because we have been conditioned largely to think over feel. And this we want to start shifting. Our brain is super useful. It helps us do so many practical things, and it helps us implement processes that bring experience into our lives, but it doesn't have to be the starting point. Experiences, feelings that come from the heart are really the most potent place to start from, because when it comes from here, it comes from a place that feels good, feels authentic. So when you're trying to get clearer on your own voice, really spend time asking yourself consistently, how do I feel about this situation or person? Or how do I feel about what I want to do next? Versus asking everybody else's opinions, okay? There's no harm in asking other opinions, but use them as a buffet to spend time with, and then discern what feels right for you. So I'm just looking at my notes because I think I'm going to touch on discernment later. So discernment, by the way, is taking the time to really sit with an idea or something that you're contemplating in order to decide whether or not it works for you, whether it feels good for you. And as with this podcast, as with every single podcast and every single book and every single expert and every single coach, I highly recommend that you see everybody, me included, as simply an idea, definitely not the how-to for life, right? Each of us is simply sharing what's worked for us. It's up to you as a sacred individual to really tune into what speaks to your heart and what feels good for you. And that's actually where all your power is going to come from. So step one is really checking in with yourself. Creativity is a really good way to get clear on how you're feeling about something too. Free writing is when you sit with a journal and you basically just write whatever comes to you. So you might give yourself a topic that you're not clear on and just start writing. And as you do, you will find that your truth will start to come up to the surface. Equally, you could paint or draw something about a topic. How do I feel about this? And just seek to express the way that you feel about that area through your painting, through your drawing. It doesn't have to be good. Okay. And that's another thing. Letting go of this need to be good is a big part of this journey. We're going to touch on this a bit more in a moment. So that's step one, really getting clear on your own voice and seeing this as something that you're going to practice for an eternity. Okay. You don't need to become a pro at this straight away. And equally, you might have moments where it's really clear and then moments when it's not. And both of those moments are perfect. There is no way to get this wrong. This whole experience is about consistent exploration. It's not ever about perfection. There is no such thing as perfection because what is perfect to you may not be perfect to me. Therefore, it does not exist. Okay? So the second thing I highly recommend is finding the courage, of course, to then voice how you feel. Now, this is where it trips up for loads of people, myself included. It's really challenging at times to speak your truth, especially when you know that it might impact the people around you in a way that they don't want it to. However, it's in practicing this experience, it's in building this muscle that we're able to become better and better at doing it. And also in doing that, we become much more proficient in trusting ourselves, because when you and your feelings start to align and you start to really show up in that space, no matter what the experience around you, you on a heart level start to see yourself showing up. And this element of trust starts to build. And that creates a power source inside of you that is quite phenomenal. And that's what's going to continue to happen once you start to play in this space. So saying out loud what you feel is super important. And it doesn't matter if at first you don't do this around the people that it might affect. I'm saying practice talking out loud to yourself about how you feel, because even saying it out loud is expanding the energy of it. When we vocalize, we create sound, which is a form of resonance. It's a form of energy. It's a form of vibration. And everything in existence comes from vibration. When you look at anything under a microscope, it's all atoms, molecules, all dancing to energy, all vibrating, okay? And so when you're able to say things out loud to yourself about what you feel, honestly, you start to just move into a new energy because you're amplifying your feelings. You're amplifying the way that you honestly want to show up in the world. And that helps you build momentum around heart-centered feelings. So I know you might come across as crazy to your partner, your friends, or whoever, but practice it in a space where you obviously feel safe to. And then at the crucial moment when you are actually expected to speak up, or even in a situation where you're maybe not welcome to speak up, but you really feel to, you will have far better opportunity or momentum behind you to support that action. So really start talking to yourself, essentially. And equally, if you're not sure about how you feel, ask yourself out loud, how do I feel about this? What is the honest feeling sitting behind this situation for me? Better yet, what is this experience teaching me? Because often when we're confused, it's because there's a situation that's come up that is helping us move through some sort of energetic confusion. Some people might call block, okay? And so teasing it apart through conversation with yourself, through journaling with yourself, will really help yourself find clarity in it. Okay, do not fret if it takes you a while to feel confident in expressing how you feel authentically. That is completely understandable. You have spent years being conditioned to do as you're told, right? And so suddenly being required to do what you want is a real big ask. So be really patient with yourself. And allow yourself to also make mistakes. You might speak up with your partner, but you might stay silent at work, or vice versa. So just observe how you're showing up and continue to be your biggest support network in all experiences. So maybe you show up honestly with your partner at home, in which case, give yourself a real pat on the back. That was a great job, Kay. Really proud of you. And when you go to work and you're in that meeting and you're busting to say something and you don't, and then the person next to you does, and everyone thinks they're the best thing since sliced bread, don't get upset about it. Just say to yourself, wow, next time it will be me, okay? And even if it's not, I'm okay with that too, because I know that every single moment of every single day, I'm stepping more and more into the person I want to become, okay? These are things that you can constantly support yourself with. Just the attitude, though, is the most important thing. Affirmations are fantastic, don't get me wrong, but the way that you feel about yourself, that is really the foundation of everything. And if you're actively there trying to really show up for yourself, it's going to be hard for you to put a foot wrong, okay? And there is no wrong, remember? Okay, becoming comfortable with discomfort. Okay, so this is maybe once you've said the thing that potentially no one else wanted to hear. And that, I felt it myself, not so comfortable, okay? And that's the biggest reason that we often use a dishonest yes when we really just want to say no. And it's actually giving yourself permission to feel uncomfortable, to feel unpopular, to feel disliked even. Wow, this is where all the gold lies. Because once you're starting to do that, that's when you're really choosing your team. I was about to say Team K, but you know what I mean. That's when you're choosing you. And that is actually where that's where your trust will really start to take shape. Because when you start to do that, you will be amazed that you've done it, but you'll also be super proud of yourself, okay? So it actually comes with this really beautiful experience of feeling proud of yourself. I mean, it might feel a bit rocky initially, obviously, whilst everyone around you feels slightly different. But in the long term, when you look back on that experience, you can celebrate the fact that you actually spoke up. I remember at school, there was a guy that was in my poetry, English literature class, and we were doing poetry. And I always looked at him in such amazement because he seemed to just disagree with everything the teacher said. And unfortunately, the teacher was he was a great teacher, and he allowed for that. He actually encouraged open discussion and, dispute. And I used to observe this guy, and I was always actually really impressed because, as we all know, disagreement is generally frowned upon. And the more I observed him, the more I recognized that he enjoyed it. Okay, I'm not saying you should get addicted to disagreeing with everyone for the sake of it, far from it. But I am suggesting that you contemplate what it might be like to be comfortable being the unpopular one, being the one that says something that other people don't like. Not to make a habit out of it, but to actually just show up in your truth, and recognizing that no matter how awkward or uncomfortable that feeling is, that feeling will pass. And really holding that knowledge that time really does heal everything, and that in the process you are becoming more and more powerful in who you are. You enable yourself to really step into a much more powerful version of you. Do not worry, again, if this takes a while. If you see yourself faltering at that moment, don't worry, this is all part of this process. Practicing saying no to things, that can be a really good step in that direction. And again, I'm not saying this because I'm wanting to create discord in your experience. It's not about that. It's simply creating courage and comfort in really showing up authentically in who you are, no matter how it's received, so unapologetically, effectively. And saying no can be a very empowering experience because, well, the same reasons, you are really showing up in a way that supports primarily how you feel. And ironically, the people around you, generally, from what I've experienced at least, they actually really respect it. They may not like it and it might hurt sometimes, but as long as you stand in a place of genuine authenticity, which is, I realize this might not be the outcome or the response that you're looking for, but this is my truth and I have to speak my truth. Often when you phrase something like that, people are actually much more open to receive it because they recognize how challenging that is from their own journey. So, honesty really is the best policy. And in doing that, we expose ourselves, we express our vulnerability, but also when we allow ourselves to do that, we create a level of humanity where the people around us can connect to us. So consider, firstly doing it in situations which feel safer, maybe with friends and family, and just being really honest about it. Like, I'm trying to be my authentic self. I really do want to speak my truth. The likelihood is the people around you will be really supportive of that, even if it doesn't line up with their opinion. Equally, if they're not, and they're very disagreeable to that, then maybe that's an opportunity for you to reconsider the people that you're choosing to keep around you. Because personal expansion, in my opinion, should always be welcomed by those that care about you. So the next one is building trust with yourself through experience. So, I've already touched on this. It is so powerful to continually prove to yourself that this is the direction I want to head in, and this is therefore the direction I am trying to head in, and this is the proof I am actively creating in my life through the way that I'm showing up, that I am stepping into this version of myself that I wish to become. Because, as a side note, that's all each of us is doing. We are continually becoming clearer on the person that we want to become. And we are continually allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission to step into that. Every time we're faced with a challenge, we learn more about the person that we want to be, depending on how we show up in that challenge. So this is when you also start to move into that space of recognizing that, everything really is working for you, no matter how uncomfortable it can be at times. And you're learning on a much bigger level that you can start to trust not just yourself, but every situation. But I digress a bit there, so I'm going to come back on track. So yes, building trust with yourself through experience creates a track record for you to show up for yourself, and in the process start to build trust. So it might be worth you considering what kind of activities or things that you might want to start doing for yourself that can start to build that trust in the meantime. So small little things that you could do maybe daily for a 10-day period, or maybe longer if you feel to, but things that feel good to you. So every single day for 5 minutes, I'm going to sit with a candle, I'm going to look in the flame, and I'm just going to allow myself to be absorbed into the light and not think too much. And I'm going to do this first thing in the morning when I've had a night full of sleep and my brain is rested and I'm quiet and my brain isn't too busy. And I'm just going to give myself that 5 minutes every single day for the next 2 weeks. Okay, and hopefully that would feel good to you, in which case you're now creating a habit that is an ally to you creating trust with yourself, as opposed to, I'm going to run 5 kilometers every single day, though I have never run much at all. I'm now going to enforce this habit because I'm sure it will be good for me, even though it won't feel that comfortable, and I'm going to do it for a month. Okay, that may not be an ally. Why? Because it's not something that will necessarily line up with you on many levels. We want something that will feel good to you. So we're not creating obstacles that you have to overcome in order to be a better person. No, because that comes from a place of kind of punishment. We want to come from a place of gentle inspiration. If you're an avid runner, 5K a day for 30 days might feel like a great idea, in which case go for it. But all I'm trying to say is maybe choose small habits to start building that trust with yourself by showing up for yourself with things that feel in alignment to your natural inclinations. Sure, on day 10, you might not want to get up for 5 minutes and look at a candle, but that is when you can start to gently support yourself and say, well, I've got this far, I've only got 5 more days to go, and then I've completed it and I've shown up for myself. And that's when you're just continually building that relationship with yourself. So think about small little habits you can create which give you the opportunity to prove to yourself that you want to show up for yourself. So the nearly final thing I would like to share with you is why your opinion is always, and I mean always, valid. Crazy, huh? And it's simply because you are unique. So authenticity is going to be a really dominating energy in the times that are coming. And that will come along with the diversity of opinions that are out there, because we as a collective are going to become much more accepting of different opinions, not because we will be worried, or rather because we will no longer be worried about chaos and we will be more interested in creativity. When we start to come from a place of love instead of fear, we're able to accept things more easily. And because we've been going through this big collective detox of fear and doubt and anger, which is still continuing clearly, as we can see on the global stage. However, as we continually move through this, we will become much more able to tune into energies of self-belief, not only for ourselves, but also belief that things around us are actually working for us. And in the process of that, we will recognize that when we encourage diversity of opinion, we will allow ourselves to receive a multitude of ideas and solutions to what can be and clearly is a multitude of complexities and problems. And as each of us comes to the table from our unique perspective, down to our unique background, our unique life experiences, and therefore our unique translation and interpretation of every single one of life's experiences, we come to the collective offering our perspective and therefore adding to the diversity and creativity that is available to all. So you see, your opinion, the more you become practiced at tuning into what your opinion is, and the more you become comfortable with sharing it, the more valuable you are to yourself primarily and to the collective. So the biggest thing for you to take away from that is recognizing that it is not necessary for people to agree with you. And I know that this can be really challenging too. However, when you start to let go of needing to be approved of, that is when your authenticity really takes on a power of its own, because you're able to come from a place of pure self-expression. And that is a place where amazing ideas can flow from. And when we allow each other to do the same thing, which is exactly what's happening right now, we're seeing it on all kinds of social media, where the younger people predominantly are real experts at giving themselves permission to just be themselves. And it's brilliant because it's giving us all unique and varied and colorful perspectives of how to show up in life and thrive in ways that do not align with the old paradigm of 9-to-5 corporate drive, the only way. So really feeling into what is your truth, finding the courage to start expressing it, creating mechanisms and practices that help you practice you stepping into this version of yourself that you wish to become. In the process, building trust by seeing the benefits of you showing up for yourself and keeping to these personal contracts, if you like, that you're creating that come from a place of exploration and self-appreciation. When you follow your gut and express it honestly, the very best thing that can happen is that there is space for the universe to support you. Now, I'm going to give you an example of this. And this is actually one of the things that prompted me to talk about this on this podcast, because recently I had a really dear friend of mine who I consider family, really, come and stay with me up in Sydney. And she lives very far, 6.5 hours down south. And she broke her leg while she was up here. It was raining and she slipped and broke her leg essentially. And it turned out that she would basically be in a hospital for maybe 6 to 8 weeks. And she doesn't know anyone else in Sydney. And so she asked if I was willing to come 3 times a week to bring her supplies, because she eats very healthily and wanted fresh fruit and veggies brought to her at the hospital, which is all beautiful and I completely support. However, when she asked me, because I love her so much, I said yes immediately. But as I said it, I felt my instinct turn around and say, no, Kay, this is not the right move. I did not have the courage in that moment to speak my truth. So we ended the phone call. We had a big chat. I agreed to everything. We ended the phone call and then I sat with it and I knew, okay, this ain't going to work, love. So you've got to tell your truth. And I rang her back and it was so challenging. It broke my heart. But I said to her, I've got to tell you my truth. I've got to tell you what my instincts are saying. And that is that I can't do this for you. And I'm so sorry, but it does not feel like the right thing to do. And of course, she was surprised, but she took it beautifully because I have amazing friends. And then she came back to me a few hours later saying that because of this, she'd had a discussion with the doctors and actually they were going to fly her back down south where she would go to a rehabilitation center and get just as good a care down there, but be surrounded by her community who would all be able to go and visit her. And it would be way more sociable on many levels. And it would give her a lot more flexibility around what she was doing. And so it actually turned out so much better than it could have. And even though that entire journey was obviously super challenging for me and her on an emotional level, it actually really gave us both the opportunity to shine in different ways. And in the process, the universe was able to deliver a solution which neither of us would have conceived of. So that is a very small example of why really doing as you're told, essentially, which is my life, is really, and when I say doing as you're told, I mean by your instinct, by your gut, is so important. And also, doing as you're told is the expression I use when I do my healing and my coaching. And that's because I'm constantly tuning in with guidance, spiritual guidance, especially when I'm doing my healing work, to receive messages from that realm to help the person that I'm working with. Because from a universal perspective, there's a a view of humanity that we as individuals just don't have. And there's no possible way we could conceive of all the possibilities and outcomes that could materialize. Yet when you allow yourself to speak from your heart, you already inhabit and speak from a place that is guided. We receive through our heart center guidance from our higher self, from our spirit guides. So when we're talking from that space, we're effectively channeling. We are speaking on behalf of spirit, which means what comes from that place is really filled with wisdom. And equally, when we cut it off and we don't allow it to be heard or spoken, we cut off the ability for wisdom to be felt and experienced by ourselves and in the collective. So it's so important. The best part, as I told you earlier, is that in hindsight, once that discomfort time has passed, which it may not always require. Sometimes speaking your truth will be really easy and joyful and wonderful. But for those moments which are challenging, and they can be very challenging, just giving yourself the opportunity to sit through that and telling yourself this time will pass. And then feeling a sense of pride in yourself for actually showing up authentically. Because the truth is, it feels good to speak from your heart. It feels fantastic to express yourself honestly. And I believe it feels so good because we're working in alignment with spirit, in alignment with our heart's truth. So I hope that gives you lots of guidance. My final note on here is because being authentic is your birthright. and it is, we are born to speak our truth. It's, we in many cases have had it bashed out of us because we've been told to conform to the group in whatever situation. But rediscovering our personal expression, that is the invitation for what's coming forward now. That is the times that we are moving into. So really allow yourself to jump on this wave, and most importantly, speak your truth and discover and relish the opportunity to take up space on this beautiful planet with your own authenticity. If you would like any guidance, any support, if you would like a coaching session, or you feel that a healing session would be much more helpful to you, please reach out. You can get me through my website, www.kwilson.love, or email me hello@kwilson.love. That's probably the more useful direct line. And I will be able to support you and your personal journey from that point forward. Sending you so much love, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.